Alright, what's going on, guys? Trev back again, here to bring you another video. This one's going to be doing my weekly review for this week's episode of Fear the Walking Dead Season 3. This is for episode 5. It's called Drowning in Flame, Burning in Water. So major spoiler warning for this one. If you guys have not seen this episode yet, you probably want to watch it before you watch my review. And not because we have, any major character deaths of our, initial cast that we started with in Fear the Walking Dead. Of course, as we've talked about recently, we don't have too many of them left. We really don't have that many from the first season that are still around already, even though we're into season 3. So this episode for me, man, Fear the Walking Dead, just bringing it again. The pacing in this episode, very fast. A lot of things happening in this episode. We have 3 left. We have 2 weekends left. We have next weekend with episode 6, and then the following weekend with 7 and 8. But this episode, for episode 5, was pretty crazy, man. It was pretty mind-blowing. And I just want to say, for this season of Fear, I think it's definitely apparent for me as a viewer that after the first 5 episodes, I would say this season has the best start to any season we have had for Fear the Walking Dead. And the introduction of this villain in this episode, Walker, I thought was fantastic. I mean, the show is called Fear the Walking Dead, right? So, of course, you have fear as its first word. But a lot of times I feel like it's not that scary of a show to watch. There's not too many times where I personally get freaked out. I mean, we've had the original Walking Dead. They've done a lot of things in it. They've had some scary parts. But in this one, I thought this Walker villain character was very intimidating, much more so than when we just saw him in the season kind of promo. When we saw him in the season promo, I kind of got the sense that, okay, he's going to be a minor villain. He's whatever, he's just going to pass time or whatever. Maybe he'll be okay. But the introduction in this one I thought was amazing. So you've got Troy and Madison. They go through. So they're heading out. They kill off. You've got the run-in with the prison boss zombies, which I thought was kind of a nice nod, or kind of a nice little cool. I don't know if you want to call it an Easter egg, but it's kind of a nod to the original Walking Dead season 3, the prison and everything. So they clear out that group. Madison gets in trouble, but she ends up getting through it. One of them shoots an arrow through one of the zombies that's trying to get her. And you kind of have this really cool kind of play off between her and Troy happening as their storyline is progressing throughout this episode, which was really great. But the part when we get introduced to this Walker character, who basically we find they go in, so they check the building and everything. They don't see anybody around. And they get totally flanked. They kind of go in, they kind of find the gentleman who is on the chair over the valley, and basically have a crow he's been left there, and he's in. This is one of the scariest parts in all of Fear the Walking Dead, probably the scariest, to be honest, or at least one of them, where he's just it's a very dark scene. I mean, this is a super dark scene where he's kind of repeating a story as if he's dreaming, but he's speaking it out loud, and he's kind of repeating it over and over again, and we see, and we're kind of figuring out with them what's happening as a viewer. And I really liked how they did this, to where they gank us too as a viewer. We go in and we see them all go through, and then they kind of come up to this part, and they're all kind of all in dismay. They don't understand. They see the bodies burnt and everything, and then they go up and they see him, and there's a crow pecking away at him. Just left for dead there, and going into this kind of repetitive loop in his mind because his brain is being destroyed, basically. This was, oh man, so brutal, so brutal. So, and for an introduction for a villain, for a Fear the Walking Dead villain, that's exactly what you want. You want a villain that's going to be scary, that's going to be intimidating, that's going to be intelligent too, which he is. He basically lures them in and then surrounds them, and it takes Troy even a bit to kind of figure out that he's been defeated, even when he thinks he's got the upper hand regardless, and then he finds out he's totally surrounded, and Madison kind of has to tell him, okay, they're going to blow us all away, you better stop because it's not going to work. So they surrender, and he forces them to give over their boots, so they have to walk back and basically get their feet all bloodied. And that's a feeling we all know what that feels like, right? If you got to walk through the woods or something, you got rocks everywhere and stuff, and you don't have any shoes or socks on, it's always a pain in the ass, right? So I found this introduction for this Walker character to be absolutely just fantastic. I mean, for a fear villain, that's exactly what you want to see. You want to see something like that. Somebody who instills fear. You definitely don't want to lose to, because you don't want to be fed to the crows or something. And, he's got his own kind of really cool slant that I like too, which is easy for all of us to understand. Which is about land, right? And I mean, it kind of goes without saying, right? And there's some statistics you can look into too, like more natives were killed during, kind of the takeover of the United States and everything in America, and also, in some ways Canada too, in different wars or anything, than all of the Jews in World War II, so in the Holocaust. So, definitely for him, you can understand his motivations as a villain, and I think that just adds to it and makes him even more fearsome, I want to say. So really cool. I love him as a villain. I love him as a villain, and I love his whole thing, and I think his motivations make so much sense, almost instantaneously when you kind of find out about him and everything, and also how scary, natives can be because of some of their torture techniques and things like that. It's really, really brutal if you've heard about some of the things that they would do during war and that. This is pretty dark, but, take your guts, right? They take your guts and they, unravel them, and they're really long too, right? So they kind of come out around. This is some brutal, crazy torture ceremonies and shit. And I just felt so bad for the guy that's in this hallucinate dream kind of nightmare state that he's getting his thing. Oh, it's just such a slow, painful death for sure that Madison puts him down. So, to make a long story short, I dug it 100%. I thought this villain was amazing, and I really hope that they use him a lot this season and that he becomes kind of one of our more memorable Fear of the Walking Dead villains, because we've had a good number of Fear of the Walking Dead villains, but none of them have been really, like Dante and the others we've had prior, Connor and that, but none of them have really been that memorable. But this character right away from his introduction, I think he's had the best villain introduction of any of our villains we've had in Fear of the Walking Dead. So then they go back, and you've even got the part with Troy where he's putting the knife up to Madison's throat. And I had to think at this scene, I'm thinking that Madison, kind of calls him out on it, that his mother never loved him and never treated him with any affection or anything. And, you go into the psychology of it, of why he's kind of become the way he is. And I really like how she kind of pointed that out to him. And then he kind of, goes to kill her afterwards while they're sleeping, or at least is thinking about it, because I suppose in a way she might represent his mother for him, and if he does that, then maybe he'll feel like he's getting kind of revenge for what happened with his mother. It's kind of like a later on displacement to satisfy increased aggressive urge due to lack of love. So it was really good stuff with that as well too, and I thought that was, I don't know if it was a scary scene. I did not think at any point that he was going to kill Madison, but I thought it was definitely interesting, and for her to say that you're better than this, I guess is the right choice of words, but also that the other gentleman that was with him saw it and was like, it turns over and, he's going to tell the others as well too, right? So they're in a pretty tough spot. You got this other villain who's going to attack them, Walker, and wants him to leave the ranch, and then you got Troy, who obviously, they have to get along with, but he's not a good guy. So, you get more and that's one of the cool things about Fear, that you have characters that are not so much like, okay, this is a good guy, that's a bad guy. It's, Troy's not a good guy in any way, right? So the other parts of his family, maybe Jake is a good guy, and Jeremiah, you could say maybe, is a good guy. We don't know that much about him yet, but he seems to be mostly a good guy. But then, you have Troy as a part of that. So really great stuff, and I loved all of the sequences in this episode with Madison and Troy for sure. So we also had a very creative intro in this episode. We have Russell and Martha, who we kind of get to hear their story afterwards, and kind of how they got together and what happened with them, and maybe what you could call a zombie apocalypse notebook scene, like where, so this was so sad. This was a creative intro as well too, and something I also haven't thought, I can't think of an equivalency for the original Walking Dead either, which I thought was really great and very intelligent, very smart. So we saw them kind of dancing. We know they were there. Nick kind of saw them and thought it was kind of cool that you could see that these people dancing and being together and everything, even at their old age in a zombie apocalypse. So Martha dies, and Russell finds her as a zombie, and she tries to bite him, right? But she can't because she doesn't have her dentures in. So it doesn't really work, and then he kind of holds her, and then he puts the gun, and then through both of their heads. So I thought this scene, even, I was just like, WTF right off the bat. It was it was a very sad scene. I mean, it was very tragic, especially for characters that we never knew anything about. And, you know, I felt kind of so sorry for Martha because she can't even be a zombie properly. You know, like she can't even, like she's a zombie, but she can't even do that right now. It's kind of like, you know, because she's in that kind of a state. And it was just a really dark sequence. And, man, this episode was really great. So that was sad to start things off, and pretty dark, super dark. And we have the fire that starts. The fire continues on. We have, and I'll try to recap most things here, but there's just so much stuff that happened. So that scene was awesome. Really liked that one a lot. It was really dark and very sad too as well, which is good. We have Jeremiah who says, "Save the water, let it burn." It's too late anyway. And then you've got Madison who heads out with Troy, saying that she survived the wasteland earlier. She can take care of herself, which we did see she was able to do, and was able to actually help the group because Troy was opting to almost get everybody killed when they were in a bad situation. They could not possibly have won. We've got the breakfast scenes and the stuff with Luciana, and Nicholas. It looks to be that Lucy leaves at the end, so we'll see how she kind of works back into the story and kind of what happens with that. We have a lot of separation in our fear characters, which I'm starting to get used to, and I actually kind of like, because it's more of like a story about kind of the world, I suppose, rather than just one particular group surviving in one location or something. Which has been really cool to see, and they really skipped around a lot this episode, and I felt like it flowed really well, even though they were doing that. So we've got that. We've got Daniel and Strand, who says they left, and they left Lola in charge. But Strand points out that the wolves are going to come in, and I like that too. That's kind of a nice, just kind of a nice Easter egg or nod, so to speak, that the wolves are going to come in for the water, right? Which makes a lot of sense, and I like that too, but they're looking for Ophelia. And also that Daniel gets mad at Strand and kind of ditches him. It's just funny later on. And basically says, "Find your way on this one, right? Screw you." And then takes off because Ophelia wasn't there, and Strand is kind of left back stranded in the place where he kind of started earlier at the hotel when he was forced to leave, which it looks like the hotel is in a bad state now as well. And we'll have to see what he decides to do or where he decides to go, where you have Daniel, who, of course, is looking for Ophelia, who may be with Walker and the rest of the natives, so we'll see what happens with that. We had the drive through them scene. We had Alicia and Jake. So, they kind of having coffee, that kind of thing, and she kind of spills it and everything, and then she kind of comes on to him. They get frisky, and, it didn't take long. It was a bit quick, to be honest. I would have thought that maybe you could have had a better build between the two, but hey, this is a zombie apocalypse. She's been getting high a lot, and she doesn't know what to live for, so whatever. It was cool, and I like the scene, and it creates a big connection between them because now they've done it, right? So that was good. Also, the scene at the end where she kind of jumps off into the water was kind of cool because you have the fire at the beginning and then you have her, jumping into the water at the end and kind of having fun, and kind of him maybe convincing her that even though life is really harsh and it's really tough in the zombie apocalypse, there still can be more to life than that. You can get to prosperity, I suppose. You don't always have to be in a state of scarcity where you're just trying to survive and keep what you have with guns and everything. So there's that. I like the scene also, the sequences between Nicholas and Jeremiah, because Nicholas, doesn't have a father. He doesn't have that kind of fatherly influence in his life. So I thought that was really cool how they kind of spent some time together and kind of told each other a little bit about each other, and we're working on the house and that, and I thought that was good, even to the point where he mentions maybe what to do about Lucy and what he wants, which was cool, and it was kind of like a fatherly son type of thing going, which I like too. Red Man's Land. So there's a mention of that as well too, Red Man's Land, which was a good one. Let's see. Everyone needs a gun, and then we got help, and then Madison wants revenge for the helicopter being shot down, and she still does, but we'll have to see if she's going to be able to get it. I like the conversation about living versus the dead, and how ahead of his time Jeremiah is, that he already knows that even though, as Nicholas says, and this is a thought that I've had before too, where everybody should be on the same page, right? Because this is a zombie apocalypse. You've got the living and the dead, and the living should really be joined together against the dead, but that's not really the way it goes, and Jeremiah already knows that, and he knows that's how it's going to go, because he's really smart, and the joke about almost blowing his dick off was funny too. That was good. So, I love the episode. I'll pretty much call it there for the recap portion. It was a great episode. It was a really, really, really great episode. The intro was interesting. You had a lot of character movement here for Alicia with Jake, Madison Troy as well too. Some complex interactions here going. Characters that are not wooden, characters that are more diverse, characters that are more psychologically rich than a lot of times what we're used to, and a really fearsome introduction for a new villain that I thought was really, really great. So for a regular episode, considering this wasn't a mid-season finale or anything, I was super impressed by this one. If anything, maybe it moved a little too fast. Usually when I'm doing reviews for Walking Dead or any series, really, one of the complaints a lot of times with regular episodes is that, hey, it's moving too slowly. Not enough things are happening. The plot isn't progressing fast enough. It's too slow. There's too much filler without enough substance. Definitely, I don't think you can make that complaint with Fear right now in Season 3. I mean, even this episode, just so much happening, really crazy stuff, very intense sequence when, Madison, Troy, and the group are kind of going in, and then when the guy shows up behind them. It was very well done. I'm going to give it a 9.7 out of 10. I think it's another incredible episode. I've really been loving Fear this season, and really excited to see what we have from this new villain. And just glued, man, for the last 3 episodes of this half. Really impressed by Fear this season. They really, I think, have listened to some fan feedback, and a lot of fans not really getting into it. And I think they're giving it everything they can. There definitely is no complacency here with the story. It's heading very quickly in a different direction, and I am loving it, man. I did not think that I would enjoy it this much if you were to kill someone like, spoiler warning, Travis off in the premiere, that I would be enjoying it as much as I am. But I certainly am. Very, very impressive. Let me know what you guys thought about this episode. Write your comments below, and I'll be back soon with the video predictions for what I think is going to happen in episode 6. If you liked the video, please thumb it up below. You can also share, you can favorite, and if you're new and you want to subscribe to the channel, go ahead and subscribe, bottom left. That's it for this one, guys. We'll see you again soon for that video and the Q&As for this week. It's Trev. I'm saying peace. Later, guys. See you soon.